Just last year, the South African State Theatre entered into a partnership with Ster-Kinekor, and that was to bring theatre to the screen and, in turn, hopefully, to a wider audience. This year, we'll see 3 productions reach cinema-goers in the stage-to-screen collaboration, so to speak. And these productions are Silent Voice, which will actually show later in March, as well as Askari, which will show in April. Also joining that list is Shaka Zulu, The Gaping Wound, which will come through on May. Interestingly enough, all of these are original South African stories. So let's speak a bit more about this collaboration and why it's important for the theatre in particular to be driven into cinemas. Bring in our guests. Artistic director at the State Theatre is Aubrey Sekhabi, who joins us via our video link. Presley Chweneyagae is an actor who plays Charlie in Silent Voices, that theatre production to be screened in March, as I mentioned. Presley joining us via our telephone line. To both our guests, thank you so much for making time. It's lovely to have you on the program. But Aubrey, if I can begin with you, this collaboration, in my mind, should have happened way earlier because of, if you like, how theatre and the screen often communicate, despite how different they are. Do you see things the same way, that this is actually perhaps long overdue?
Good morning. Yes, I think that this is long overdue, but we are grateful that it is happening now. I say it's long overdue because if you look at what we have done as a State Theatre, we started capturing our content on film many years ago, and that is why we were able to transition. When COVID hit us, we were able to transition and go online and eventually had this collaboration with Ster-Kinekor. I think it is important for us, for theatre to be seen, to be taken to a broader audience. And I think our collaboration with SK is giving us just that, with Ster-Kinekor is giving us just that.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the COVID-19 pandemic because, ironically, the theatre hasn't been spared, being knocked by that. How much of that is ironically still a challenge for you, being able to get these wider audiences to the cinema in a context where the cinemas itself, quite frankly, has seen greater years in the past?
I mean, for theatre going into cinema, it is a challenge because it's new for us and for Ster-Kinekor. Because then suddenly you're no longer in one venue at the State Theatre. You are all over the country. You are in about 7-9 venues all at a go. So that is a challenge. And also given that we're still not yet out of the woods in terms of COVID. So at some instances, there's still resistance from audiences going, but it has been building up. And also because now you're not really getting all those big sound effects that you get when you watch Hollywood blockbusters. You're actually getting real life stories that are intimate, that are still performed in the theatre, because at the end of the day, it's still live theatre that we are giving you in the cinema. But it is growing bit by bit. It's looking good. I think even for Silent Voice, Askari, Shaka, we're hoping that we're going to be able to do much better than we were. Also, the attendance ratios, now we're no longer at on lockdown, we are at 50%. So we'll see as the audiences start flocking into the theatre, into the cinema, how we do with these particular 3 productions, but we are so hopeful.
Yeah. You speak about Silent Voice. Presley is obviously a cast member of that particular production. He plays Charlie, and Presley, as I mentioned, joins us via our telephone line. Presley, it's great to also have you speak to us. Speak to us about, Silent Voices, and as you do that, I mean, as a performer yourself, you know that the demands for theatre and screen are so vastly different. How are you, with this new collaboration, taking into consideration both these demands, so to speak?
Thank you so much for having me on the show. Obviously, as you say, it's quite different, to perform for a live audience. Everything is more intimate, and, obviously with film, everything is a bit more minimal for you as an actor, as a performer. So it's very important to be able to draw the line between the 2 mediums. But I'm quite excited that finally theatre and film is coming together, and then people will share different experiences.
The advantage about what is also taking place through this collaboration is that it allows us to kind of record and preserve some of the work that's being done in theatre. And there have been concerns about, potentially in the past, that work being lost, the essence of some performances, so to speak.
Yes, I think it's quite important that we archive our work because, as you might know that some years back, I happened to be in one of South Africa's best films called Zoti, that won an Oscar. With all the other productions that I've done in the early years of my career, they were not really documented, or I can say that they were not documented in a more vast scale like this opportunity now. So it's really exciting.
Yeah. How is, Aubrey, the production work evolving with these kind of collaborations in mind? Because, I mean, let's be frank, writing for stage and writing for theater is very different, even though you're telling the same story. I mean, for theater and for screen, you know what I mean.
Yeah, yes, it is. It is writing for stage and cinema is quite different in format and everything. But I think at the end of the day, it is still storytelling. But for us, you know, we were quite conscious even when we did Silent Voice, and we had already done a few works with Ster-Kinekor. But when we did Silent Voice, which we filmed last year, we had already learned a bit of lessons from what we had already done. But at the same time, we still knew that we wanted to keep the live event, which is a theater performance. So we were not, I mean, we made some considerations in certain scenes to slow some things down to allow for good shots to happen, you know, but we were not trying to change Silent Voice into a movie on stage. And again, people that have seen Silent Voice before as a stage play many years ago, because, I mean, Silent Voice will be 30 years into it this year. It's celebrating 30 years since its existence this year. But a lot of people that had seen it even 10, 15 years ago have been saying this production, this stage play looks like a movie, even when it was on stage, because of its approach, which was more action-packed, which was more alive. So there wasn't a lot that we changed to allow it to go into cinema, because we still want to capture that live event, that theater experience for you. Only that now we're just capturing it through the lens, and then we're taking it out to cinema. I mean, there's been some changes on it. Originally, like Silent Voice, we had played with a percussionist, so it was a cast of 5. It was the 4 Charlies and a percussionist, so it was 5 Charlies. And now we went with a full-scale band to allow us to give us a nice soundscape. So there are those elements that we've added to allow it to thrive in cinema, but there hasn't been many changes to the live event.
Yeah, you know, ironically, theater and cinema have always had some kind of relationship, even if it was unofficial, so to speak. The theater is thought of, at least in some circles, as being the school for acting, the real school, where the real learning actually takes place before stars like Presley then go on to emerge on screen. I mean, with this kind of collaboration, I imagine streamlining that kind of workflow, if you do subscribe to the school of thought, becomes a whole lot easier.
It is a lot easier. Actually, we do subscribe to that school of thought, because even when we started streaming our works, I think on the 24th of May 2020, and we've done a lot of theater productions, we've done a lot of musical productions, so most of our work now can be found online. And so even these productions, I think once they've been into cinema, they will be going into our online platform that we're busy setting up. I think it will be ready soon. But in the meantime, we're using a YouTube as a platform to stream our work. So once it's been into the cinema, you'll be able to receive it online. And like you said, in terms of just archiving this work, you know, originally you'd be doing this production for 4 weeks at the State Theatre. If it doesn't tour, you are folding it up and putting the script away, and then that work may never be done again. It may not exist. But this time around, it means for academics, it means for theater practitioners, you can always find this work. For young directors, for young actors, you can always find this work. So it is quite important. And of course, we have to change with the times. You know, things have changed. We will always say, no, a theater can only be live. Yes, theater can only be live, but it doesn't stop us to have theater exposed to many people. Suddenly now, because the theater can go online, someone in Brazil can watch the work. Someone in India can watch the work. So it is important that we archive our work. And I think as a South African State Theatre, we are miles ahead in terms of creating this work, but we are so conscious of not really moving away from saying this is a theater play. If we want to make Silent Voice a movie, then we will adapt the stage play into a movie.
Presley, I'm going to break all the rules that there are for performance like you and ask you which is your favorite, even with this collaboration taking place. Are you able to choose whether you prefer theater or the cinema?
You know, theater will always be my first love,
yeah.
because, you know, I started in theater 1996 at a place called Askari in the Northwest Province, Komafikeng, and ever since then I never stopped. So I think it's very important also for young actors to have a theater experience as a base, because it has somewhat influenced my my acting for film. So I must say, yeah, theater has always been my first love, but I love them both. I'm a polygamy when it comes to that.
Yeah, no, most people say it's like asking a parent which is their favorite child. So good on you for making a decision. To both our guests, thanks very much indeed for your time. Exciting collaboration that's taking place there, and I wish you all the best moving forward, at the very least, because this is about shining a spotlight on the excellent work that comes from our entertainment sector, the arts, so to speak, in South Africa. Presley Chweneyagae is an actor. He plays Charlie in the production Silent Voice. Also joining us there is the artistic director at the State Theatre, Aubrey Sekhabi. To both of you, once again, thanks very much indeed.